Hello and welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor editing live. And I forgot to put my thumbnail on the screen. I am Darlene, and today we are going to be doing layers. So I'm going to be demonstrating with both Luminar Neo and Photoshop because there are some things that you can do in Photoshop that you can't do in Luminar Neo, and I'll talk about those differences as well. So I've got a couple of images that were submitted by subscribers. Lee, if you're here, I've got yours, and I can put together your skaters for you. I attempted it already in Photoshop, and I know I can do it. So we're going to do both. I'm going to show that one in Photoshop and in Luminar. If you are joining us for the first time, please tell us where you're joining in from in the chat. We have a lively chat group, and we have lots of regulars that join us every week. So if you are new here, welcome and thanks for joining. Let us know how you found out about us. Was it a friend? Was it my Facebook post? Was it the email that I just sent out? How did you find out about us? So I'm just going to kind of wait for everybody to trickle in here. And I see lots of regulars. Stephanie joins us quite frequently. Edward. Hey, Tara. Nice to see you. I know I posted in the Images Alberta group, so I'm glad you saw that. Pamela, Holly, New Jersey. Oh, yeah, Super Bowl. There you go. What time is Super Bowl starting? I don't care about the Super Bowl, honestly, but I'll watch Usher at halftime show. Alaska, warmer Alaska. Welcome, Deb, another regular. John, also from Edmonton. So we got a few locals tuning in. That's where I am from as well. And then we've got as far reaching as New York, Ray, and Otto. Welcome from Germany. Belgium. Okay, it must be, is it late in Europe? It must be late there. England, Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania, I guess. Manfred's talking German with Otto. Awesome. I don't understand that. Unfortunately, my last name is German, but I do not speak it. I speak more Spanish. We're going to be asking about this too. Yes, we're going to be creating a community. We're going to be creating a digital photo mentor community. So watch for that learning coming soon. We're literally learning about that. Marguerite, Nancy. We'll tell you more about the group later, Holly. It's literally just in the idea stages right now. Bob in Winnipeg. Oops. There we go. Bill from Texas. David in Ottawa. Marty, welcome. Daniel, Terry in the UK. Okay, great. Alan says, it was my magnetic personality. I literally just attracted you. Hey, I love that. Awesome. Okay. Neil saw my email. Awesome. Okay. Stephanie just watches for the commercials. Oh, for the Super Bowl. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Okay. And Jose from Spain. Awesome. Well, we got lots of Europeans today. That's wonderful. It's early morning in down under. So in the UK, it's late. And then down in Australia, it's early morning Monday. So we may be having some people at work. So I want to jump right in here. And I'm going to head over to Luminar. So I'm going to start with Luminar. Actually, I'm going to start with Photoshop to show Lee how I would do her skating picture. So let me just get back here. Okay, there we go. And here. All right. So I've got some images, and these are the ones that Lee sent. And she wanted to know how to put these together so that it looks like you've got three skaters in one picture. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to Lightroom first. And now I need to go find my images that I put in here. Okay. And I've got lots of things to work on in here as well. So sorry, I have lost my layers. Here we go. Okay. So what I did was I did a little edit on these first. Okay. So they were a little bit dark. So when you're going to do things in layers, you want to make sure that you've done your basic editing first. Okay. So the original image was a tiny bit dark. So all I've done is brighten it. It's also a little bit on the noisy side because it was shot with a high ISO. I don't know if you can see that on your screen. Okay. But there's a fair bit of noise in here. Now, I could deal with that, but I want to just demonstrate the layers today, okay? So I don't want to get involved in doing the denoising, but if you were going to do that, I might be inclined to do the denoise on each image first using Lightroom or Luminar, and then do your layer combining, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in Lightroom and Photoshop first. Rob, did you change my layout? Awesome. Thank you. This is a good thing. Okay, Rob's in charge of changing the layout from now on. That's awesome because I always forget. So to get to layers from Lightroom into Photoshop, you just select the ones that you want to use. I need to turn on my little mouse highlighter here. People always ask me about this little green dot. This is literally just a plugin for my computer that highlights my mouse cursor so that you can see it better while I'm doing demonstrations, okay? So you select the 3, and then you right-click, go to Edit In, and Open as Layers in Photoshop, okay? And what that's going to do is it's going to open Photoshop, which I already have open, and stack each 3 layers one on top of the other, okay? So it's not combined them yet, okay? That's not what we want to do. There's another step that I need to do before I turn on the layers, okay? So now we're over here in Photoshop. Let me get the layers. You can see layers right here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one, which is sort of the main image, like these ones here. This one looks like she's landing. This one looks like she's taking off. So I'm going to work with just this top one here, and I'm actually going to drag it to the bottom. So this becomes my base. You can just grab it and drag it down to the bottom. And in order to have space for her on either side, I need to expand this canvas, okay? So I need to make this image bigger. Yes, I am on a Mac, Kimmy. Okay. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to use canvas size. So I usually use the keyboard shortcut, so it's going to take me a minute to find the, there it is, canvas size. So it's, for me, it's Command Shift C, I believe, Command Alt C. And what I want to do is I want to make it bigger on both sides so that I have room to put her on the left and the right from the other images. Now we can do that as a percent or pixels. So I think I'm going to go with percent, and I'm just going to go with 200%. Okay, on the width. Now I'm not changing the height. I don't need to add anything above or below. I just need to change the width. And then down here, where do you want to leave the original? I want to leave it in the middle. So what's going to happen is when I expand the canvas, there's going to be some blank areas on the sides. Okay, like so. So now that's what the new image looks like. Okay. Now I can turn on, I got to move something out of my road. I got 2 monitors going on here, so I need to manage this. Now I can turn on the next image. Okay. Is that the one where she's taking off? That's the landing. Okay. So this one is now where she is taking off, I believe. So I want to move this one over. Okay. Now you can already see the problem, right? Is that it's overlapping her, but that's okay. I want to try and get the boards lined up. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. Okay. So I want to get it so that the boards here of the hockey arena line up close enough. Okay. And then we're just going to mask it. Okay. So I'm going to add a mask to this image. That's this button down here. Okay. Add a mask. And once you have masked, okay, in Photoshop, it gives you a white mask as the default, which means that everything on this layer is showing. Okay, so white is revealing. Okay, that's always kind of the key phrase is black conceals, white reveals. Now I'm going to get my brush. That's B on my keyboard. Rob, get ready to share some of the keyboard cheat sheet shortcuts, please. Photoshop keyboard shortcuts cheat sheet. Okay, that was a tongue twister. If you want to download a PDF that you can print out and have on your wall at home for Photoshop keyboard shortcuts, I have that available for you. Rob's going to put a link. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to paint with black. These are your brush colors over here. Okay, so make sure the top one is black. If it's not, just hit D on your keyboard, which is default, and it sets it to white and black, and then X to switch them. So black is on top. Okay. So you want to be painting with black. Right now on my brush, I want to have a soft brush. So make sure that the hardness is down. And I got to this little menu just by right clicking on the image. Okay. So right click gives you the brush settings. And then I'm going to paint with 100% opacity first, because I want to get rid of all of this stuff that's covering the other girl. Okay. So I want to make sure that I see her. Okay. And like get rid of the edge. Okay. Now they're a little bit close together. So I want to move this one over. Okay. But if I do that, watch what happens. So I got the move tool. Okay. The mask goes with it. Okay. So I actually want to leave the mask where it is. So there's a little trick here. You can just click this little icon. I wonder if I can zoom in. No. Trying to get my mouse to zoom in here. So there's this little chain link icon between the layer and the mask. Let me see if I can make my thumbnails a little bigger. And that's as large as they get. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So click this chain to unlink them. Now, making sure that I am on the image, not on the mask. Okay. So you got to click on the image. Now I can move this over, and you can see that the mask stayed where I painted it on the other girl, on the other skater. Okay. Now I can move this over where I want it and make sure I've got the boards lined up again. So, oops, where'd she go? My mouse went crazy there. I'm using the move tool, which is this, and I can click and grab like this. Or if I'm doing a finer tuning adjustment, just use the arrow keys on the keyboard. So I'm just using the down arrow to get the boards lined up there. Okay. So that's kind of, I want her a little bit closer, but not as overlapping as it was. Okay. So that's kind of where I want her. Now I want to go back onto the mask. So you always want to make sure you're on the right thing. Okay. So you don't want to paint on the image and it'll have a little white outline around it. B for brush to get back to my brush. And this time I'm going to paint at 50% or so because I want to blend it a little better. Okay. So I'm going to go in here again. I want to get the edge and I'm just painting kind of in a little bit like so. Okay. So it's fading together a little better. Okay. Can you see that? So it looks like it's the same image. And if you make a mistake, just switch to the other color using X. Let's zoom in and see how well that's blending. Okay, so see there's a little bit of funkiness happening here. I'm going to switch back and make sure I paint it here. Let's try that. So I just toggle the layer on and off. Let's get back to black. Back to black. Amy Whitehouse. Okay, so you can see what's happening there. Okay. And if I want to blend it a little bit nicer, but it looks pretty well believable, right? It's blended fairly well, right? I can hit number 3 on my keyboard to change the opacity. So if I want to just blend this a little bit softer, okay, so when you lower the opacity of your brush, I'm painting with 30%. So it's just helping me fade that edge a little bit, okay? Now I'm going to go back and turn on this other layer. Okay, so that's the third image. Make sure I'm on that layer. Get the move tool, which is this guy, and that's the V on the keyboard. And I got to move her over here. Okay, now notice she's on top. Oh, my Photoshop's doing a little spinny wheel. Notice that she's on top, right, of the other original layer. Come on, Photoshop. So again, I need to mask it. Oh, there we go. So it's hard to see. It's hard to see where it needs to go, but I'm kind of guessing here. I could also move her down below. Okay. I'm still guessing. So I'm just going to leave it there and then do a mask again in black at 100%. So I'm get the brush. So B for brush, 0 for 100%. And I'm just going to start painting from this side to make sure I get the whole girl, the original, like so. And then change my opacity up here. Again, 5 on my keyboard to 50%. And then I'm just blending it so that the ice looks realistic. Okay, make sure I don't get the edge there. Okay, so now let's turn that one off and on. I'm going to take a little bit more of this image here. Oops, going the wrong way. Let's do this one. Okay, where's the edge? So I can see the edge of this image here, right? So I want to get a little more of this middle one. So I'm just literally just playing around with the blending, right, to see what looks the best. That looks pretty good to me. And now I'm seeing that the boards aren't quite lining up. So let's just move that one up a tiny bit. There we go. All right, how is the ice blending? There's kind of a highlight here. So maybe I want to remove a little bit of that highlight there. Oops, see, I lost her foot. So I just have to change back. So I'm using a lot of keyboard shortcuts. Can you see that? I'm using a lot of keyboard shortcuts to blend it nicer, okay? Just get a little bit of her highlight there. Okay, now what needs to happen is we have to crop it because we've got some edges here that aren't blending. Or we can use the new generative AI to add that, okay? You can literally just do fill on this as well. So I could do select this, okay? If I want to fill this in, and the new generative AI tool, I just have to hit enter and it will fill that spot in and give me 3 choices, right? This is the nice thing about the Photoshop generative AI compared to the Luminar one. In Luminar, I don't get choices, okay? So there's option 1, option 2, option 3. I think I like option 3, okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. But you know what? I don't even think I need to do that. I literally just can make another layer. I'll show you an easier way to do this. I'm just going to make a retouched layer. Okay, and then I'm going to use the cloning tool, set to normal. And I'm going to set the opacity about 70%. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clone from here down here and just paint in the ice. See that? I'm literally just painting more ice in. Right? It's pretty straightforward. And when you have, you know, something like sky or something like this, it's pretty easy to just fill it in, right? And this part on the end here, I think I'm just going to crop out, okay? So we don't necessarily need that part. So once again, crop tool. Oops, we need to go freeform on the crop tool. Get to the edge. And I don't even know if we need that much. So let's just give her a little bit of space in front of her. And we'll make sure we have enough space over here. Let's check that out. That looks about right. Do we have enough space? Yes. Right now, when you crop, let me just go back to the crop tool again for a second here. When you crop, okay, there's a little option here at the top. It's very hard to see that says delete cropped pixels, okay? Now I can come back here and bring this back because I didn't check that off. If I check that box off, these pixels over here will be gone, deleted, okay? Gone forever. So if you want to delete those pixels, if you don't think you're going to need them, check it off, okay? Otherwise, just leave them and you have options to crop again later. Okay, so there is our combined finished image. Okay. Now to get back to Lightroom, okay, this is where a lot of people make a mistake is they go to save as and they save a new TIFF or a new PSD or what have you. You don't have to do that because you brought them from Lightroom. Okay. They already work together. All you need to do is save. So save or Command S. That's it. Okay. I'm just going to change my view here. So we should be able to see the bottom. Where's my bottom of my screen? Can't see the bottom of it. I don't know why, but hang on a second. I'm trying to see the bottom of the window here because it shows you, there it is, the progress. Okay. So it shows you how well it's being saved. This guy's in the road. That's the problem. And then it's done. Okay. So it's fully saved. Then the next thing you need to do is just close. So save and close. And then when we go back to Lightroom, look at that. Okay. There's our finished image. Okay. So let's see if there's any questions about that. And then I'm going to go do the other one, same one in Luminar. Okay. Let's see. Yes, you can get the shortcuts for Photoshop too, please. Rob, can you share those? Because that's what I was using is you shared the Neo ones, but we need the Photoshop shortcuts. Okay. Absolutely, as a composite, as a panorama. And I was even going to tell Lee that inside Luminar Neo, it actually has a really cool feature with the panorama stitching. If you take a video, right, even just with your phone, if you take a video of the skater going across the ice this way, you could put that into the panorama extension and choose different versions of the skater, and it will stitch them into a pano like this for you. It's really cool, as Rob was just talking about there. So I do actually have a video about that. So if you could share that video, Rob, people will be, we can watch that. Uh-oh, Sheila's guilty of save as. No more, Sheila. Which is smaller, TIFF or PSD? Generally, a PSD is a smaller spaced file, like as to how much space it takes up on your hard drive. TIFFs are larger. I usually prefer PSD. They both will hold layers. Okay. I usually work with a PSD. The only time you will run into problems is if you have something that's over, I think, 2 gigabytes, but you have to be starting to combine like a lot of images to do that. And I ran into it maybe twice in my goings on because I don't do this very often, but I'll show you one where I did run into that. And then in that case, you actually use what's called a large format Photoshop document, right? Yes, you can, Lee. You missed the intro, and these are your images. So there you go. If you want, I can send you the finished one, but I want you to make it. So I'm going to show you how to do this in Luminar next. Tricky to maintain the aspect ratio, Edward, because if I did, there's not enough space on either side of her. She'd be on top of herself, if that makes sense. Okay. Aha, you've got lots of skating photos to work with. So awesome. Try the thing with the video too. Next time you go, if this is your daughter or somebody you know, take a video where they're skating across and get her to do a jump or something, and then try the pano stitching. So Rob has put a link for the video to the pano stitching in the chat for you as well. Okay. That's what I thought, Dennis. Yeah, 2 gigs for PSD was the limit, 4 gigs for TIFF. And I believe if you're doing a larger one even than that, like if you're doing the one that I did, which was like this, this one is a PSD, but I actually have another one that was a PSB, which is a Photoshop Pub. I don't even know what it stands for, to be honest. It's a large format. Okay, so let's hop over to Luminar and we're going to work on the same images. So I've already done the editing on these and they are all JPEGs, okay? Just so I can have them in here to work with because we need to do something to expand the canvas first, remember? So what would we use in Luminar to change the canvas? Does anybody know? How many people are using Luminar? Let's, Rob, can you do a survey? Because we've got lots of people here today. We might be breaking a record here, or over 100. Woo! If you could do a survey, please, Rob, of what is people's main photo editor and give them 3 choices: Luminar, Lightroom, Photoshop. And if you want to put a 4th one, put On1 Raw. Okay, so do a survey. And the girls are exactly right. Holly says Gen Expand. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, so let me change back over here. I like that Rob can change my view mode. So I'm going to take this image, the middle one that I expanded before in Photoshop, and bring it into Gen Expand. So the choices for the poll, Rob, are Lightroom, Photoshop, Luminar, and On1 Raw as your main photo editor. So when you're answering that question, tell us which one is the main photo editor, okay? Which one you use the most. Okay, so I'm going to expand because I need some room over on this side, but I'm going to do it one at a time. And I'm also going to do it little by little, okay? So I'm not going to type anything in here. I want it to fill with content-aware fill, okay? But as a recommendation from Skylum, they suggest that you expand it, little by little. So instead of making a big expansion, make 3 small ones. Okay. So now, because we're using Gen Expand and it's a generative AI tool, it is now sending information to the cloud, to the Skylum server. So, okay, so not so much. This is the problem that I run into often with this one, is I find that it does not expand when it has a plain background as well. Okay, let's see if we can get it to work on a second go round. You know what, it may not matter because I'm ultimately going to put the other image on top. She's skating through a brick wall. Yeah, she's pretty amazing. Okay, that's better. I'm going to just keep going because, as I said, we're going to put the other image on top anyways. So honestly, it doesn't even matter what goes over there. We just need the bigger canvas to work on, right? Remember, in Photoshop, there was nothing there. We just expanded the canvas and it was blank, okay? Interesting. Sheila says, I've switched up my main editing to Photoshop, rely on Neo quite a bit. Getting worried. She says, getting worried that Lightroom Classic is on its way out. I hope not, because I have like 300,000 images in my Lightroom catalog, so I sure hope not. Okay, so now we've expanded this side and it did a much better job. Let's take the fit to screen. Did a much better job on this side. I'm going to go one more expansion. Okay, and that should give us enough space to put the other skater. Let's just go extreme here. Maybe one more expansion. And I could give her some more space up top if I want to, but I don't want to spend too much time doing AI stuff because it takes time to pull the stuff from the cloud, right? I don't want to spend too much time waiting for it, right? Have we got a poll up and running? Okay, well, that's interesting. I don't know where those guys came from, but you know what? I'm just going to ignore them for now, and I'm just going to save it, and we're going to put those other images over it anyways. Okay, so a little on the bizarre side, definitely. This is definitely, sort of a drawback of this tool is that it doesn't always get it right. Okay, so now I'm going to take this into the edit panel. And we're going to add these other images as a layer. Okay, now they're not in here, so I have to load them. Okay, so I have to know where I put them. I put them way down in here under the layers category. And I believe there's the first one. Yes, okay, so here's the first one. So I'm going to add that one. So it adds it here. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to go and load the third one and add it there. So now I'm going to add them to the image. So there's the first girl, right? Now it's doing some weird things. Oh, that's the original image. Hang on. I want to make sure I'm on this new layer. There we go. Okay, so now It's added her at 50% opacity, and I just need to move her over. Okay, so now I can really see, and I should have added more. I should have added a little bit more space for her, but let's just work with it, right? If I had turned down the opacity on Photoshop, see how well I can see where it's blending in there, okay? So I'm just getting the ice lined up, okay? And I could even tilt it a little bit, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go with that and turn her up to 100%. Actually, let me turn her, let her mask it first. So 50% opacity helps us see the bottom layer, and we can see where we're masking it, okay? Now, I could try a couple of different things here. I could go to just human and have it pick her out. But in this case, I just want to erase, okay? Remember, I want to make sure I get all of this girl, okay? So I'm erasing from here, okay? And then 50% to blend, okay? So just going over the ice and this area here to blend a little better, okay? And I missed part of her leg, so let's go back and get this girl's leg back. Okay, remember she's at a lowered opacity, so once we come back up here, when you turn up the opacity, she's fully there now, okay? So let's see what it's doing. And then if we need to do any more masking, let's just mask a little bit in here. Oops, I wanted to be erasing that. How does that work? How does that look? Okay, so I just want it to blend as nicely as possible. Okay, so turning down the opacity, I could see what's happening there. And that's not bad. There's a bit of a blue door in the background there, so maybe I'll blend that one out a little bit more. Okay. So more of the original image. So the more that I erase, remember, the more the original image, this one in the middle, is showing. Okay. And that looks pretty good. Okay. Now let's go add the other one where she's landing. Okay. Make sure I'm on that layer. Let's move her over. Okay. In this case, I did give her enough room. Again, I want to line up the boards on the arena as close as I can. Okay. And we're just going to mask it once more. Okay. So masking, brush, erase, 100%. So make sure we get all of this girl. I usually like to get the full edge and get her leg. Okay. Then I'm going to come in at 50% with a nice big brush and just blend this edge around her. Okay. And we'll see what that looks like when we go to 100%. Change up the opacity. And we'll cover all those guys in the background. Okay, so let's see how our blend is. So just dial it down, dial it up. I'm going to erase a little bit more here. So I think this window should be solid like that. Otherwise, that looks pretty good, right? That was better like that. Okay. So I'm looking at various different things, you know, does this blend? I could come in a little closer. Does that blend? Maybe I need this one like that a little bit. No, it was better the other way. Then blend it this way. There we go. Like so. All right. So there we have it. Okay. So the Gen Expand kind of failed on this one. We got some weird like tennis players or I don't know what over there, but we were covering with her anyways. Okay. Now, if we want to, we could take this whole thing and do Gen Expand again over here to give her a little bit more room on that side. Okay. And that time we will need to make sure that it's perfect. But I think if I expanded it more originally, we could use more of this image. Awesome. Thanks so much, Marsha. We're just getting started. I'll probably go for another hour, so stay tuned. Love it. Those are the judges, the guys in the background. I love it. I love it. Okay. See, this is the great community we have, and we love your sense of humor. Both walkthroughs were great, and you can see that, there's a lot of similarities. Where Photoshop differs is I can do things like align layers. I can have an auto align layers, and there's more options with the brush tool and things like liquify. Okay, so if you want to do those kinds of things, you need Photoshop. But as I've demonstrated here, this result you can do with either, right? Awesome. Please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Roger says the blue door in the window in the middle is a little off. Okay, the one, probably this one here, right there. Yeah, I agree. I would do a little bit more work on the masking, but I think it's pretty good and it's believable, right? And obviously people are going to know that this is a multiple exposure and they're looking at the girl and they're not looking at the background, but I would blend that one just a little bit more. You're right, Roger. Okay. Now I'm going to show you that we have a few options now for the next one that I want to do. And this is where it really becomes an interactive session, okay? Because we do this every week. We do this every week, and you get a choice. What am I trying to say? We do this every week here with a different topic. Okay. So last week, I think we did exposure. A couple weeks before that, we did color, and then we did black and white. We've done cropping. So check through our past live streams. I'll do an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. If we have a really epic session today and people want to keep going, we'll keep going. I'm not opposed to, I can order a pizza. So not a problem. All right. So what I'm going to do is I've got a collection here where I'm going to get you to choose. So these are some images that have been done with layers. Okay. And some have been done with Photoshop. This one was Photoshop. It would be much harder with Luminar. This one was done with Photoshop. Okay. And the reason that I couldn't do this one in Luminar is that the smoke is actually a custom brush. So I can show you that, right? As well as the text. So those are two things that you can't currently do in Luminar, right? This one was done in Photoshop, but I could easily do it in Luminar, probably, right? This one is light painting, and it's 3 images layered. Also light painting, layered images, light trails. This is multiple images layered so that it looks like there's more cars. Okay. So this is something that's very common. And these ones here were combined with a silhouette. So it was a dark silhouette picture combined with another image. And I could certainly do that in Luminar as well. Okay. This was done in Luminar. This was done in Luminar with the smoke layer. So the smoke on these ones is a layer, and I'm using the blur tool on the background, right? And this was done in Luminar as well. So it's just a double exposure. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a vote. Let's see. I'm going to pick, we're going to just use this one as a representation. Okay. So between those 6, so we'll call it top row, left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So tell me in the chat now which of these you would like to see, either by describing it or put the number. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, the one with the Ghostbusters thing is really involved. So if that one gets votes, I will do that one last because not everybody may want to watch that. The others are not quite as involved and can be done with either Luminar or Photoshop, or both, like I did with the first one, so that you can see both. Okay, so far we're getting some train station. And then Stephanie says number 1, number 4, number 1, number 6, number 4, number 5. Okay, number 4 is getting lots of votes. Number 6. Rob, can you count those votes? There's a lot of votes there. Number 4 in Luminar. How do I count those votes? Maybe we need a poll. Maybe we need a poll. Let's simplify this. These are both double exposures. So let's say a double exposure, and these are both light painting in layers. So can we do a poll, please, Rob? 1 to 4 on this one, because you can describe them if you want in the poll. I'm having a hard time counting the votes because I'm seeing lots of votes here. So number 1 would be complex layers in Photoshop. Number 2 is light painting. Number 3 is double exposure or 2 images combined. And number 4 is adding like a smoke layer. Rob, are you preparing a poll for them to answer? And I'm curious, what was the results of the other poll? I need you to tell me what's going on in the chat. Poll is up. Okay, so please answer the poll. I know we did that in the chat, but there's too many for me to count. I'm not good at counting that many. I didn't think we'd have that many votes. That's awesome. Okay, use the poll, Sheila, to vote. There should be something that pops up on your screen as a poll. So pick 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so 1 represents complex layers in Photoshop. Right, 2 is light painting. 3 is double exposure or 2 images combined. And Rob says number 3, then number 4, 1 and 2. Okay, so 3 and 4 are kind of similar, actually. So which one do you want me to do, Rob? Number 3? I can do 3. Nancy likes the polls. We like the polls too, Nancy, because it gives us a chance to find out what you guys are thinking. So number 3, okay. So it sounds like number 3 and number 4 are winning. All right. And do we want them done in? I can show you how to do it in both. Okay. So what I'll do is this one here with the double exposures inside the silhouette was done in Photoshop, and I've actually got the sax player in Luminar, so I can show you that as well as how to do these ones, because they were actually combined Photoshop and Luminar. Okay, so they were a little bit of both. All right, so let me go back here because I've got these in my quick collection. Okay, so this is the image that I used as the background. So if you're doing this kind of thing, it's a really neat idea. What happened here was actually I was doing a studio type of photo session, and I wanted a really light colored background. And my backlight went off, but the light on her didn't, right? So it kind of was a mistake. So instead of deleting this one, so this is a message for everybody as well. Don't delete mistakes, because sometimes it's what we call a happy mistake. So I made it into a silhouette. Okay. So I made it into a silhouette, and ideally I would like just her face, but this one happened to have her hand. So if you don't have, you don't have to have a studio to do this. Just photograph somebody with a bright background, expose for the background, blow it out like this, but make sure they're in focus so you have a nice crisp outline. Do them in profile. Okay, so you want to make sure you get the profile and get a nice clean sort of profile headshot. Okay. Then you could combine that with any other image. Okay. So let's see how that works. So what I did in this case, do I have a PSD? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to open this PSD. So what I would do is if I wanted to combine this, oh, here's another one that would be a great one. Actually, why don't I do this one? If I want to combine this one with what would we like to see inside of her silhouette? Let's just see. I was thinking, flowers or warrior, something like that. I could put a flower inside hers. Trying to think of what goes good inside of a headshot. It has to be appropriate for the person as well. So what I did with the other lady was I put one of her inside her own head. So I could do that actually, because I've got one of Crystal here. So that's Crystal Lightning, and she's amazing. Is it this one? Yes. Okay. So she is an actress, actually, and these are some of the shots that I did. So I used the silhouette of her, but I could add in one of these other ones inside the silhouette. Okay, so I'm just going to pick a few of these and add them to that quick collection. So you want the images, even if they are in different folders, you need to be able to see them inside Lightroom if you're going to do this with Photoshop. Okay, so to do this same kind of thing here, I just chose another image of this lady, which her name is Nancy. So I just chose one where she's facing the camera and put it inside the silhouette. Okay, so let's do the same thing with Crystal. Okay, so what image might go nicely inside her silhouette? So this one might. Now I'm not sure. So what I might do actually is open all of these as layers, right? And that's how I created this one as well. Okay, so I kind of, you see, put her inside the silhouette, and then I put the other one in the background. Okay, so I could do that same kind of idea here. Let's work with this one because I've already done that one. Okay, so let's do this one as well. So same thing we did with the skater. I'm going to do edit in, open as layers. Okay, now the silhouette is going to be my base layer, and I'm going to put the other one inside her face. Okay, now blend mode becomes really important when you're doing something like this. Okay, and you'll see how that comes into play in a moment. You can see it opening the layers. And wait for it to be done. Don't interrupt this process, whatever you do. Okay, you see where it says loading layers? Make sure it's finished before you do anything. Okay, don't interrupt it. Now you see the 3 layers, and it kind of looks like a mess, right? But we're going to work on this one. So I'm going to, again, put it on the bottom. Okay, and I'm actually going to crop to the silhouette. Okay. Make sure I'm on clear. I just need the silhouette image. So I'm going to be cropping the other images, but because I didn't do crop pixels, the image is still there. Okay, so if I turn this one on and I move it up, okay, it's not cropped off, it's still there. Okay, so I'm going to put this one inside. But before I do that, I'm actually going to flip this one. So I want her looking the other way, right? So how do you flip an image in Photoshop? Okay, because if I just flip the whole thing, all of the images will flip. And that might be okay. But if I just want one layer to flip, let me show you how this works. Okay, so if I just want the silhouette to flip, not this top one, you need to go to Edit, Transform, and Flip. Okay, that will flip just the layer. Okay, notice this one didn't flip. Okay, now we've got this one on top, right? I can put her inside the face, but once again, we can't really see what we're doing. So we can dial down the opacity of this layer. So the layer opacity is here, okay? Just so we can see where she is, right? Or I can leave it at 100% and change the blend mode. Okay, so what blend mode do you think we're going to use here? Okay, if you don't understand blend modes, everything in this first section under darken means that anything that is darker on the layer that I'm currently on, so that's the top one, anything that's darker than the one below will show. Okay, so now you can see that the only place this one is showing is where it's lighter. Okay, so when it goes on top of the silhouette, it's not showing. Okay, but it is when it goes on top of the background. So that's how I created that kind of look. So she's like behind her, okay? If I change the blend mode to any of these in here are looking for darkening, okay? If I change the blend mode to lighten, now look, where it's overlapping the dark part of the silhouette, that's where it's showing. Can you see that? Cool, right? Okay, like so. So anything inside this mode, right, lightens. Now, if I want to make this one bigger because I want it to fit her face, right? I may or may not make it bigger, okay? So one of the things on the feedback that I got on this one that I did of Nancy was that the face inside her silhouette was bigger than the silhouette, right? Like you can see her chin is down here, but it's up here. So her face is bigger. Okay, so if I want to strive to keep her face the same size, you can see her eyes are there, her chin is there. Okay, I could also decide if I want to rotate it a little bit. Okay, rotate is back onto that same edit, transform, and this time you want free transform. So not under this one, you want free transform. Again, keyboard shortcut. I use this one a lot when I'm working with layers. Okay. It brings you up these handles that you can make it bigger or smaller, but you can also rotate. Okay. So let's do something like that. So she fits inside. So I want to make sure, see, it's cutting off her nose. I don't want to cut off her nose, right? So if I want this one over here, we just need to mask it, right? So if I just want her face part, right? Or I need to make it bigger, okay? So that's why I made it bigger on the other one, because I wanted to fill in that area, right? And I kind of don't mind, honestly, that she's bigger in one than the other. So it's art. Like we're just playing, right? It's your art. You get to decide. Okay, so I kind of like seeing the outside of the hair right there. And let's just work with that. Okay. So once I hit enter, now I've got this. We're missing part of her face. Okay. So we need to mask this one just like we did the skaters. Okay. So now I'm masking the top layer. Make sure we have black. Make sure we have the brush. And I'm masking at 50%. You can see I'm just painting back in her silhouette. Right? Like so. And I want the hair on this side too. So I'm going to get a nice big brush and fade in this edge as well. So see, I'm just fading it like so. Okay, this guy always gets in my road. So how do we like that? Okay, so that's kind of neat. Okay, now I've still got this other image, right, on here. Let's put this one in the background, but maybe I want to reverse it. So let's invert this one. Okay, so I'm going to free transform again, right, because I want her over here coming off the edge. And I kind of like her, I mean, her head is cropped in the image, but maybe it's a little too big. I use the keyboard shortcut for transform. Let's go something like that. And once again, mask, brush, and I'm at 60%. So I want this back in. Okay, so I want this full black area here. The other thing I could do, instead of masking this, which is a simpler version here, okay, so if I get rid of this mask, let me just show you here, is literally just put this on the bottom, okay? But now, of course, it's not showing up, right? So I just need to change the blend mode on this one to darken, okay? Do you see how I did that? Do you want me to do that again? So I moved this image to the bottom, okay? And then this image needed to show the silhouette. So the only place it was darker, it showed up, okay? There's kind of a weird highlight right there. So I want to get rid of that highlight. I'll probably just clone it out. I like her off to the side like that. Okay, so that's 3 images combined in a very different kind of way, right? Using masking. So any questions about the blending modes or the masking that I just did? Screen or lighten? Okay, question. When do you use transform versus free transform? So transform is when I need to do any of the following. So under transform, you can do just rotate or scale, right? You can also distort. Okay, for example, distort, you don't want to do this to her, but you can do like stretch it, like do weird things. Okay, so we definitely don't want to do that, but it gives you other options. Okay, whereas free transform is the one that I use the most. Okay, if you just grab the corner, it rescale it to the same proportions. If you hold shift, you can actually like stretch it. Okay, or if you if you put your mouse on the corner, you get that rotate. Okay. I kind of like her diagonal though. Okay, so that's a very different look than I made before. So again, remember, save, not save as. Wait for it to save. Okay, there's the percent down at the bottom. It will tell you. Oh, you can't see it because I'm there. Okay, see how it says the percent save down at the bottom here, the little blue marker. Okay, once it's done, then you just need to close. Okay, so close, and then it brings it back into Lightroom. Okay, and I think with this silhouette, as you can see on this one, I flipped it, but also straightened it so she's looking straight ahead, because the silhouette, she's looking up, right? So it's angled, and this one is straighter, right? So that was combining in Photoshop. Any other questions? Could I do a gradient layer on the third image as a way to? I could do a gradient mask. Yes, I could, but I just used the brush. When you use darken blend mode on the bottom, does it affect all layers? I didn't use darken on the bottom. I used it on the middle. So let me open this one up again. Okay, so now here's the next piece of this, and I'm going to come and do the saxophone player in Luminar next. Okay, so you can see the same idea. When you come back to edit this image again, this is another mistake that people make, and they end up with multiple TIFFs or multiple Photoshop documents. Okay, when you open it up again, okay, and this is a PSD, okay, so when we look at this, you could see that's the Photoshop document. Okay, if I want to have those layers open, you go edit in, and don't choose smart object, choose edit in Photoshop, edit original. Very important, okay? Because when we open the original, it's going to give us the layers, and we can take over where we left off, okay? See that? Layers right there. Boom. Okay, so everything we just worked on is right here. So what I did, I can do it again if you want. What I did was I moved this layer, okay, from the top to the bottom, and this one was set to normal. Okay, so that one was set to normal. So I moved this layer to the bottom, and it disappeared, right? Because the one on top of it is set to normal or full opacity. If I dial the opacity down of this one, you could see the other one underneath, right? There it is, okay? So this is just the silhouette layer, okay? If I change this one to darken, now only where the silhouette is darker, which is right here where it overlaps on the shoulder, that's the only part that's showing. Otherwise, the image below shows through, okay? So this one is set to darken, and this one is set to screen. If I move this one below, okay, let's set this one to normal. Let's just see what happens here. And then set this one to, yeah, see, we can make a big mess. Now they're sort of all relating. It's how they're relating to each other. Now this one is the problem, right? And it looks like I painted with orange somewhere down there. I don't know where I got the orange from, but whatever. That's pretty weird. Right. So it's how it relates to, yes, it's how it relates to the layer directly below it. Okay. Can I confirm that I am on wired? Yes, I am, Rob. Okay, so so I'm just going to close this one now, and I'm not going to save it because I just messed around. Let's go over to Luminar and attempt something similar. Okay. You can see I actually did this with the saxophone player. And what I did was I added this image of him playing, right? This one. Let me view this film strip. I added that image on top of, oops, that one. Okay. So I edited this image and then I added the other one as a layer. Okay. This one here was a combination of, again, the same background with a silhouette. And then I flipped it. Okay. I wish that tree wasn't there. I honestly do. I really wish the tree wasn't there. I hate that tree. Okay. However, I can work with it and enlarge it. Right. So which one would you like to see? They're both kind of the same. Let me do this one. Okay, so I'm going to go to this one. I think this was an exported JPEG that I've already edited because this is not the original RAW file. Why does it look stretched? Something's going on funny here, but that's okay. Okay, so we're going to add a layer. So you could do all your basics first. So if you're working on a RAW file, you can do all of your edits on this RAW file first. Okay, then you can go and add your layer. So you need to, oops, how's my sound? Is it a little better now? My Mac always turns the sound down. That's better. Okay, so if you need to do your basic edits, do that first. Okay, then just add a layer. And I've already got the saxophone images guy in here. Okay, so I can add either one. So I can add this one here as another layer. We'll take a moment. Give it a second. I got so many programs open here. I'm going to close Photoshop just for now. See, it's giving me an error. A lot of people get this when they're using layers, but it's because I'm streaming and I have Lightroom open and I have Luminar open. So it's not because of my Luminar is slow. It's because I have multiple things open. Come on. I've lost it. Okay, I'm going to close Lightroom for the moment because I've lost my Luminar. Still thinking about it. There we go. Okay, layers coming. Layers coming. Here we go. Okay, I have a couple of questions coming in here. I have a lot of blanks in my images area. It happens to me daily, so I can't find the layer because it's not visible. Yeah, I've had that happen as well, and I've removed a few because it tends to save those as resources. So I've removed them. I don't think it means that any image you've added it to gets removed, but I'm not sure either. I'm still working on questions about the history panel and things like that. When going back to Photoshop after editing, did you advise edit in Photoshop and then select edit original? Yes, exactly correct, Edward. Exactly. Okay, so now I've got this image here on the top, but I want it to be really big. Okay, so I'm going to make it really big because I just want him. I want the saxophone. I don't want this guy, so I want it sort of like really big up here like this. Okay, something like that, maybe even bigger. Okay, now how I do the blend mode, I haven't decided yet, but let's just say I'm going to do I'm trying to get the positioning fairly right, because once you mask a layer in Luminar, the only drawback is you can't move the mask like I did in Photoshop. You can't separate the two, okay? So I'm trying to get him inside the pant leg. There we go. Okay, so it's a little bit darker. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to change the blend mode to somewhere either multiply or one of these. I find that soft light works really well, and I'm going to turn it all the way up, and then I'm going to go do the masking. Okay. Now I'm not going to use the auto masking or AI. I literally just want to get it off of the sunset so I can start with a linear gradient, which is what somebody mentioned earlier. And I want the top part to show. So I'm going to bring the linear gradient from there. Okay. Like that. So that's most of the way there. Okay. Now, if I want to, I'm actually going to bring this layer down a little bit because I'm going to crop it because I don't need so much up top. So I'm going to bring this down and then I'm going to redo the mask a little bit. Okay, so now I don't want it over him so much. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit and work on erasing. Again, with a super soft brush, usually pretty big, and again, lowered strength. Okay, so in this case, I don't want this showing here. And I want to get rid of sort of this part. I think in the other one, I made it even bigger. Okay, something like that. I don't like this thing on his pocket there, so I'm actually going to clone it out. I want to make sure I have the full saxophone over here. Like that. Okay. And I might position it differently as well, because with the way that the saxophone is hitting the yellow of the sky, it's not showing up. So if I move it up a little bit or down, let's go up a little bit. I like that a little better. So it's kind of in the blue of the sky, right? And then just play with the masking, okay? So painting adds more of this image, right? So we're masking this layer. Erasing erases this image, okay? The one that's on top. Kind of want to erase more of it. I kind of just want his shirt. I don't like his pants. I don't like this part right here on his pants, so I'm going to come back to properties, because guess what? We can edit this layer as a separate layer. So I'm going to zoom in, and literally it's like a hole in his pocket, and I'm just going to erase it. Ta-da! And the rivet on his jeans. Okay, now we've got the cloud showing through. Okay, so that's a simple way of combining two. Okay, now if I wanted to add, I could crop it. So if I want to crop it to get rid of this top part of the sky, I have to go to the original image, okay, because I want to go to the crop tool, freeform, and just come down a bit. I don't like that sky showing up there. I want to simplify it a little bit, okay? And actually, I want a little bit less on the bottom too. Something like that, okay? Now, if I want to add the third one of him, I just have to go find it, right? And there he is, the silhouette one, okay? So silhouette. When it adds, right, he's facing the same way, but we can flip him right here, okay? So let's say I want kind of a smaller version of himself down here. I haven't done this one. This might be kind of neat, okay? But I don't want that stupid tree, remember? I don't want the tree. So I'm working on just this guy, okay? I can rotate as well. Let's put him on an angle. And again, remember blend mode. I just want darken or multiply. One of these ones will work good, okay? But I'm going to mask it out from the tree, but I know that I just want the guy. So we could try mask AI here, okay? Because I just want the man, okay? To answer your question, Nathan, yes, there's always a replay because this is YouTube. Okay. So on YouTube, whenever I do a live, as soon as the live ends, it's there as a full video and you can go back to the beginning and watch the beginning. So yes, you can. Okay, so now I've got a choice of human. So I'm just going to pick human and see how close we get. Okay, it looks like it did a pretty good job. It's picking up something weird up here, but that's okay. So I can just come up here and erase those bits. Okay, but it got me really close with the mask AI. Okay, because I didn't want that tree. I just wanted the dude. Right now we've got this, and I've got the ability to leave him as a shadow or fade him out a little bit. I also have the ability of making it larger. Now, the trick with doing this is that when you make it larger, you end up losing sort of the handles, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a workaround. You got to bring it down till you get the handles and then reposition, right? And now he's too big. Right, so see, this is the tricky part. Oh, and you can also see I missed part of the tree. That's not bad. Maybe angled too much. Okay, so now he's kind of a shadow, right? I just had another really interesting idea. Okay, wait for it. Because I said shadow, right? Watch what happens. I'm going to make it smaller. What if I make him a shadow of himself? See, the light is actually coming from this way, so his shadow would be over there, but I'm just playing around right now. So what if I made him a shadow on the ground of himself? So when you're doing things like composites, okay, you have to pay really close attention to shadows, right? And these are the kinds of things you can do to add a shadow. How cool is that? Actually, I'm going to do multiply. Multiply just blends it a little bit differently. It adds the layers together. Okay, so if I just do darken at 70%, in this case, I don't think it's doing that much of a difference. Right now, if I want another one, I can just duplicate this layer. So I've got the shadow again. And this time I'm going to put him back into my original idea. Right, or I could put him over here sort of in the background. So he's, again, a shadow of himself. So there's lots of neat things you can do with a silhouette. And if you've got bad lighting or challenging lighting, try playing around with some silhouettes. Right? I'm literally just playing around. Okay, so we could put all kinds of him, like so. And let's just fade him out a little bit more. I think he needs to be bigger. I think he needs to be a lot bigger. Just on the edge. Something like that. Right? And then again, we could duplicate the layer again. I'm hitting D on my keyboard. Put them over here. Flip them around. We could put them upside down. We could put them inside out. Right? We can have all kinds of variations. His name's Ray, right? So we've got the many faces of Ray at this point. And at some point, we are overdoing it, right? So decide what kind of look you want. You can also show and hide the layer. So if you're not sure, you can leave them there and just go, what does it look like with just that one? Right? No, I don't like that one. What does it look like with just that one? That one I kind of like. What if I add this one? Okay, that's not bad, but it needs to be bigger. All right, let's do that. Let's make them bigger. Put them down here. Maybe he's tilting too much, or we want him sort of off the screen. The silhouette works best in the place where the behind image is light, right? So let's do something like that. Still too big. So there's a lot of sort of finicking, playing around when you're doing this kind of thing. There is no right or wrong, right? It's artistic license. It's your artistic license. You get to decide what you want to do with it. Okay. And then maybe I want this one off. Okay. So you get to decide. I mean, that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool. I still think it's too big. There we go. Maybe it just needs to be darker. Like that. Okay. So there is another variation. And I've done this image a few times and various different ones. This one here, I actually did the top layer and made it black and white. So you can see that I made him really big here. And you can edit this top layer as well. So you can see that I changed it into black and white. See this overlay right here? Top one, black and white. But it's all non-destructive, right? So I can come back here and decide, no, I don't want it black and white. So I just turn it off. Now we got back to color again. And maybe I want, more intensity, like so. And I might need to redo the mask on that because it's not perfect. Okay? But it's very different than the one we just made. Okay? And if we start with the one of the silhouette, we could do something completely different. Okay. I haven't tried that. I haven't tried putting him inside his own silhouette. And I made this one black and white on purpose. So let's try that. Okay. So I've got the close-up one of him and I've got the sunset. So let's try the sunset. Right. And I'm going to invert it so he's facing the other way. And let's try. Okay, we get some interesting things happening here, right? Might have to mask the tree. Maybe not. I could put him inside himself as well, right? So then that would be a lighten. And mask him just inside himself, which is kind of neat. So let's say I want to mask this one. Let's do mask AI again. The mask AI only works on a layer when you actually have some subject matter. It will not work if you're doing a texture, okay? So again, I want just the human in this case. Okay. There we go. So now he's kind of inside himself. It's not masked perfectly. I would probably go in and do a better job of masking that, right? Now I feel like he's like a little mini person, right? But you can make some really creative things using that. Any other questions? Take care, Danelle. We'll see you next week. Should we do another one? Any questions about this one? So this is double exposure or multiple exposure. I want to show you another thing that's really fun in Luminar and really easy to do, and that is changing the background. I want to show you this image because this is a stock image that I downloaded. It's part of my course on Luminar Neo. If you don't already have that, Rob, can you put a link to my Luminar Neo course in the chat, please? this is what the original image, give me a second for it to load. Come on. It's basically, okay, I don't know what's happening there. That's the original. There we go. Okay. There's the original. Okay. So I cut out the background and I don't know why she's blue, but let's do the same kind of thing on, I picked a couple of images that were submitted. I think this is actually Sheila's. Yeah, it is. Okay. So this one I've actually done a little bit of editing on, and it was originally a color image, and I've done some editing and I've turned it into black and white. Okay, so you can see the sort of blotchiness on her little cheek. So I fixed up that and really spruced up, punched up her eyes, but the background is kind of plain. So do we want to change the background? Okay, so to do that, you just go to Layer Properties, Masking, and Portrait Background. Now, if it's not a portrait, you would do Background Removal, but Portrait Background is super easy. Okay, so I'm just going to say remove the background. Okay, and voila. It's not perfect, but we can fix it. Okay, so it missed this teddy bear here, so the teddy bear has to come with us. So in here, this is the way to define the subject. Okay, so right now I'm going to tell it this is part of the subject as well. Okay, so I need to tell it to include the teddy bear. Now I'm going to get all of it, and then I'm going to come back with the transition brush and a smaller one and go around the edge. Okay, and it will find the edge of the teddy bear. Okay, there's a little bit missing right there as well. I can't really see where the edge is, but I'll come back to that. Okay, so that is the teddy bear. I missed a part. Okay, so the teddy bear is all in here. Okay. What I'm doing with that is I use the backslash key to see the original so that I could find the edge of the teddy bear, just like that. And if there's parts that are missing, like in here, okay, this is the baby's shoulder is missing. And you can see as I tell it object, okay, like I did with the teddy bear, as I tell it object, it finds the edge for me, okay? And I'll do a transition around the edge. So transition just helps to find the edge of the subject. It's harder when it's blurry like this, right? So this is actually part of the teddy bear here. And then I'll just run along the edge. Okay, so now we have nice soft edge. And I think in this case, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I want to get close. Okay. And I go with a smaller brush on this transition brush too. Okay, that looks pretty good. I want to make sure that I've got all of her hair, make sure I've got her ear. Okay, so I can literally paint while I have that brush down, okay, while I have that key held down. So I can paint right on the edge because it has a hard time here because it's the same color as the background. Can you see that? So it's having a hard time. It's having a hard time choosing what is the subject and what is the background. So I'm just helping it. Okay. This ear looks good. That hair looks good. Shirt looks good. And the other hand looks good. Okay. So now I can just say, go back to properties. And now I've got the background cut out. Okay. So now the background is transparent. So I can add whatever I want as a background. Okay. I could add something abstract. I could add some flowers or some bokeh. Let's just see what I've got in here that might be appropriate for a little girl. I do have some colorful bokeh. Right, now keep in mind that I've made this image black and white. So if I'm adding some colorful bokeh, I may need to make the background black and white as well, or put her back in color, okay? Or I could do something. I actually use this one a lot for backgrounds. It's a brick wall that I photographed, right? So I'm going to do background, okay? And then I put it up to normal, okay? Transparency 100%. Then I just need to drag it below the little girl, right? And the background then shows and she's cut out, right? Now I can see that the refinement on this edge could be a little bit better. So I can go back in and do that. Make sure I'm on the baby layer, right? Again, I have to go back to portrait background removal and do remove again. And just go back to the transition brush. And I find that just going along the edge, it does a better job of sort of cleaning it up. Okay, like that. And it's got a bit of the background down here. So I'll just paint that. Okay, let's see how that's done. Right, see how that cleaned up the edge a little bit better? All right, now, can you see the next problem? Okay, the scale of the background and the scale of the baby don't match because she was really close up. Also, the background's in color. Okay, so we can make the background in black and white. So make sure you're on that layer. So I can just convert it to black and white. The other thing I need to do, though, is to blur it because it looks ridiculous. The background is completely sharp, okay? So I need to use some kind of a blur. And the blur tool, the new blur tool, is great. So I can literally just use Gaussian blur and blur it out, okay? Like so. About 9 looks pretty good, right? But I could even go further and make it just a nice blurred background. If I want to change the size, right? I just have to enlarge it a little bit. And then just play around with the position. Maybe I want to flip it. I think I like that better. Okay, I would still do a little bit of work. See on this edge here, there's a little white line around there, and this one is better. So that's that refinement of that edge, okay? And maybe brighten the background a little bit too. Okay, so again, make sure I'm on the background layer. I just need to brighten it. Okay. Keep it soft. I'm going to keep the background nice and soft. And that helps it blend on that edge a little bit better as well. Okay. Stuff like this bothers me, this little dot in the background, so I'll just get rid of it. Okay, so there is a before and after. Okay. Let's see. Thanks for coming. I have to drop off to walk the dog. All right, we'll see you in a couple weeks, but as always, it's there for you to watch later, Stephanie. How would I get the remainder of the halo off her arm? I would just go back in and refine the mask again. So I'll go back into the layer of her. Okay, so make sure I'm on that layer. Go back into the masking, back to portrait background removal. Unfortunately, you have to do all of these steps, okay? And then I would come in to 100% when I'm doing this and do a better job, right? So I'm going to get a smaller transition brush and do less at a time. So a little bit at a time. And to see your work, all you need to do is just click that. Okay, see how that's helping? Okay, so if it's still not getting correct, I would go to the edge with the object brush. And then I might go on the other side with the background brush. You don't have to be exact, okay? It clicks in, right? And then when I go with the transition brush that's smaller, right, I'm literally telling us, I'm telling the program, this is the edge of my subject. This is where I want the mask to transition, right? It's not doing as well down here. So when you get closer with the background brush, it does tend to look for the edge again. Okay. So I do a little brush. It's not picking it up perfectly. So I'll go back again with the transition brush. Okay. And just keep doing this. And if it's not working with this brush and the transition, I can just go and do regular masking and go to the brush. Okay. So I've still got too much of the baby's arm showing. I'm just going to go with the lower opacity on this edge here. Right. And just go until I get rid of the halo. See that? It's easier and better to do smaller strokes and just go over it more times than try and get it perfect with the first one. Okay. And if you were using a like a Wacom tablet or a graphics tablet, this masking is way easier, let me tell you. I'm going to go a little bit higher on the opacity here. Can you see how that's working? Okay. A little bit over the finger there as well. And a little bit by the cheek here. See that? Just take your time. Don't be in a rush when you're masking. People who do composites literally spend hours on these things. Okay? Hours. So don't expect to get it perfect. See, and my brush wasn't so good there. That's better. Okay? So just keep working it like that. All right, so we've done a lot of different things. I want to switch back over to Photoshop because we've got some really complex things that we can do there. And I know people wanted to see that. And I'll show you a quick light painting one. It's very similar to the double exposures. So I want to show you a really quick fun thing that you can do with Luminar. You can do this in Photoshop too, but I kind of like doing it in Luminar. It's actually easier. And that is using the blur tool to make an abstract. Okay, so images that are super colorful like this, you can do what's called a twirl, right? Or I'm calling it a twirl or a swirl. Okay, you have to apply it twice. So first on one layer and then again on a second layer. Okay, I'm just waiting for it to load here on my preset. Let's see if there's any questions. First time on the live. Thanks, Kim. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you did. Nick, ran into that problem with the flower images yesterday. Couldn't get it into an acceptable degree. Would slightly reducing the structure on the halo also help? Yes, but then you'd have to go in and mask again the structure tool because you're masking that. You're applying structure to the whole layer. Okay. But yeah, the softness on the brush makes a big difference. Okay. I'm starting to get my cough. Okay, so can you see what my preset does? So when I apply this preset, it's applying the blur tool using the twist 3 times. Right? And I'll show you that. So when I apply this, there's my edits. Okay, so I did a little bit of basic edits first and then blur, twist 100% at 45 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate this layer. Okay, and then I'll show you how to twist it the other way. Now we're on the second layer and we just have to go back to the first blur application and change it to minus 45. Okay. Go to the second one, minus 45. And the third one, minus 45. Okay. Now all that did is blended the twirl the other way. But remember, we're on a layer and we have blend modes. So watch what happens. Okay, now we can create some really cool abstracts. Okay, now this is centered. You can make the blur off-centered as well. Okay. I could also enlarge this layer or move it over or do all kinds of neat things, right? Let's just see if I enlarge this, right? So now I'm doing some complete abstract stuff, okay? So this layer is bigger. You can also do some neat things with difference. Difference is a very bizarre blending mode, okay? And you can, of course, mask this as well. So it's just something fun to play with. So literally just make 3 blurs with a twist and then duplicate the layer and twist the other way and play with your blend modes, right? So that's kind of fun. All right, now I need to open Lightroom again because I closed it because we were having troubles. And that's what I did with this one here was I just blurred the background. I changed the sky on him. Let me go back over to Luminar while Lightroom's opening. So I changed the sky and then I just did the twist blur and masked him out so that he wasn't getting into the swirl. Okay. Yes, Holly, you have lots of flowers, so I want to be seeing some twirls in the Facebook group. And I want to see some skaters in the Facebook group, Lee. Okay, anything colorful as well. It doesn't have to be flowers, right? It literally just twirls the colors. So anything colorful works really great, right? But you could also put a different image on top and twirl that and blend them. Okay, so there's the possibilities are endless. Awesome. Okay, who would like to see how I put this together? Okay, so this is light painting or car trails. The same principle applies. Okay, let me just see. Okay, so this is the finished one. Get in here. Why won't it let me? Apparently, I can't move these around. All right, so this is the finished one. Okay, which is blended from a few different ones. So I took multiple shots and then blended them together. Okay, so that's one version. Same thing with this car. Okay, so here's the car, but it's from the following images. Okay, including Rob's legs. I think those are Rob's legs. So let me show you the car because this is kind of a fun one. Okay, so again, layers in Photoshop. Pick your layers. Okay, so these are the images that we're going to work with. Okay, each one has something different. The first image, if you're doing light painting like this or car trails, do one that's maybe a faster exposure and darker. Okay, so this one here, for example, okay, where the car is dark as your base because you want the darkest layer on the bottom. Okay, then we got a car trail going through here. We've got light on the front of the car. This was literally lit with a cell phone. Okay, here we did a different version of light on the car. Okay, this is another one that's sort of base. And then this one with the headlights on by pointing the light into the headlights. So I think I'm actually going to take this one out because I don't want... No, I want to use these 6. Okay, so you'll see in a moment how it's easier to do this in Photoshop than in Luminar. And with the city ones, like for example, if I chose these 3, okay, you have to make sure that nothing moves. Okay, if you're using Luminar, you have to make sure that nothing has moved. You have to be on a tripod. Okay, whereas I think with these ones, it might have moved. No. Oh, yeah. Can you see the building moved a little bit there? See that? Okay. So I'm going to show you these ones first real quick, just to show you what happens. You want to make sure before you take your images into layers, again, process them in your basic editor first. Okay. So in this case, Lightroom. And I want to make sure that I have the same color across all the images, right? This one looks purple. This one looks a little different. So I want to sync the edits. Okay, so this one looks purple to me. So I'm going to dial this down a little bit. Okay. Right, because that was the original. And I brought the highlights down and the shadows up. Okay, so I'm trying to pick up a little more color. Okay, I've got clipping warnings on. I'm trying to make sure. Let's try something like that. Okay, I want a little bit more contrast and a little more highlights. Okay. Now I'm going to sync. Okay, so I'm going to sync across all of the images that I have selected. Let me see what I've got masking here. Okay, so I'm masking in to darken some of these highlights, I believe. Okay, and according to the fact that they're all shot on the tripod, I want to mask them all the same. I want to crop them all the same. Anything I've done to one, I want to do to the others. Okay, and I'm just going to say replace because I want them all the same. I want the same color, the same cropping, the same everything. Okay, now let's just scroll through them. See, Lightroom takes a long time too. Oops, there we go. Okay, so first one, I just want to scroll through to see if they're the same, right? Now, this one looks darker. Okay, the other way to check is to use this view, which is compare view or NN. I forget what they call this one. Survey view. Okay, and I'm seeing that these two are darker and these two are lighter. So I'm going to go to this one and just darken it a little bit. And then my Lightroom is slowing down again. So I am going to close Luminar this time. Okay, so this one, I'm going to darken it a little bit. And I think this one was a little bit light as well. Yeah, okay. And then I'll check survey mode again. Do they all look similar? Closer. This one still looks a little bit light to me. So I'm trying to get them as the base as close as possible. That's too dark. Okay. There we go. Okay, now I have the four selected and I'm going to right click them. Oh, right click, edit in, open as layers once more. So same as the figure skater. Okay. Yes, Rob did light that. So he's talking about the Cuba car. He did light it with his cell phone. Yeah. This might be the last one. I can do the car, but this is the same principle, but it's got a step in here that the car doesn't need because the building, it moved a little bit. So I was photographing this from a balcony of a restaurant across the street. So it's possible that my tripod got kicked or, just the balcony like bouncing a little bit, that each image wasn't exactly perfectly aligned. Okay. So it's still opening. Remember, don't mess with it. You can still see the little circle thing. My computer is working hard. I'm going to turn on my fan. There we go. Okay, so now there's my layers. Okay. So I want to find the darkest one. So I'm just going to turn them off one by one. And I think that's the darkest one, right? So I want to find the darkest one and put it on the bottom. Okay. That's always the first step, right? Then as I turn on each layer, you can do this all at once, but I want to show you step by step. Right. But before I do that, sorry, I forgot a step. I want to select them all. Okay. So select all your layers and go up to edit and auto align layers. Okay. And then just leave it on auto. So what that's going to do is if anything is out of registration, Photoshop's going to analyze it and reposition it. Okay. Now, let me turn the layers off. Okay. So see how this has got a little edge around it, right? So it repositioned some of them. Okay. So now when I turn these on and off, the building doesn't move, okay? So auto align layers is your first step if you think something has moved, okay? Don't attempt this kind of thing handheld. Obviously, you're not doing long exposures, handheld anyways, okay? But if you think your tripod has moved, do auto align layers. That is something that is not available in Luminar. Sorry, I've got to sneeze. Do you have a problem with scratch disk space when utilizing Photoshop, Luminar, or Lightroom, or Luminar, or is this a technical question? It is a technical question, and yes, you can have problems with your scratch disk. Where you will run into problems running any photo editor, including all the ones you listed, On1, DxO, anything else, is a bunch of different pieces. If you have not enough RAM, okay, most of them will tell you 16 gigs of RAM is the minimum. Double or triple that, okay, or quadruple that is better, okay? If you have Mac with an M1 or M2 or now an M3 chip, even better. The second thing is your processor speed, okay? So that's the chip. If you're on an Intel, okay, that's going to be the gigahertz speed. The last thing, though, is the space on your hard drive, active open space on your hard drive, okay? So if you have a 1 terabyte drive and it's 80% full, that's your scratch disk, okay? So the scratch disk is always working when you're doing stuff like this because it saves things there temporarily. And if you don't have any space there, yes, you will run into trouble. So that's a very good, it is technical, but it's a good question. Okay, so now we're back in Photoshop. Okay, now I'm going to turn on this first layer. And remember, the opacity is at 100% and normal. So it overwrites the bottom one. Okay, but I'm going to change the blend mode to lighten. Okay, so all it's doing now is brightening in certain areas that are brighter. Okay, now I can choose to mask that because this sign over here is getting too bright. And maybe I don't like this squiggle here or something like that, okay? So we can add a mask to it. So this is why I usually recommend doing it one by one, or at least checking your layers, because I'm going to add a mask and I'm going to paint with black. And I'm just going to paint with a lower opacity, like 30%, just over this area here, because I don't want it brighter, okay? I don't want these signs any brighter. Because if one exposure is brighter than the other, same here, okay? I don't want these guys brighter. I want them to stay the same. And then I'm just checking. Okay, down here as well. Can you see that? So I'm just going to paint in here. See, that's what I did. Now I've got a red color, and I actually painted red on the image, okay? So I made a boo-boo. Now I'm going to go back to my mask, paint it on the mask, okay? So don't paint on your layer. I did that as a boo-boo. Okay, so I don't want this area to be brighter, okay? Maybe here too. So anything that's getting too blown out, this thing's always in my road, okay? So see how that's turning the lights on? Now what if I don't want this one down here, okay? So if I start to mask this out, okay, you have to be careful because it's masking the whole thing. You have to watch out you don't get sort of like a halo around it, okay? But it's a tree down here, and I think, or it's a guy with balloons is what I think it is. So I'm going to turn the next layer on, change it to lighten, and if I want the same mask, okay, I can copy this mask. Actually, the easiest way to do that is select the mask. No, that's not what I want to do. Select the mask, and I gotta think about this for a second. That's it. Okay, so I held my Option key down, and I just dragged it up. Okay, so now I'm masking out those same areas that I did on the first one. Okay, if I turn the mask off, okay, you see what it's doing? And in this case, it's not doing a good job here. So I'm going to reverse it here. I'm going to paint this back in because there's a line here that's missing. Can you see that? So when I masked it, It wasn't completing this light trail here. Okay. And we got one more to go. Put it on, change it to lighten. Okay. Again, I could mask. Now I'm going to do option, drag it up. Okay. And once again, I'm going to go up in here, change it to black. Like so. And you can see that the last one filled in the missing bits on the edge as well. Okay, so let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so with just one image, that's the light trails. As we take more images, okay, you can layer them. So this is a technique that people that like to do long exposures at night to do car trails exactly like this. Now this is a super busy intersection in Hanoi in Vietnam. But what if there's not that many cars going by? Okay. If you do a longer exposure, what happens to the lights of the building? They get overexposed, right? So if you are doing this kind of thing and you don't have enough cars that you want in your images, take multiples, okay? So expose for the rest of the scene, do as long as exposure as possible, time it with, traffic lights and stuff like that, right? Because you can see when the traffic is coming. Take as many as possible, and then you can blend them together later. If I had taken 8 or 10 images, I could have even more car trails. But the fact that this intersection in Hanoi is insanely busy. It's craziness, right? Scooters everywhere. Most of these are scooters, to be honest, or tour buses, right? And Dennis makes a good point. It's good for fireworks as well. Exactly. So you can take multiple shots and have more bursts of fireworks. Bingo. Why am I masking the highlights layer by layer and not all at once? You can't mask all your layers at one time. You have to mask layer by layer. You can't do a mask on all of the layers. Doesn't work that way, but you can copy the layer from one to the other. So the one that I used on the first layer, I copied it to the next one and then just altered it slightly. Okay, so that was the shortcut. Good question, Tara. Okay, so again, now if we're done, we have to do save and close. But what if we want even more car trails, okay? If you want to take this into Luminar Neo, you can, okay? I'm going to show you another little trick. You need to do a stamp layer. So that's Command Option Shift E. Okay, so that makes a layer which combines everything else below it. Then convert that to a smart object. You'll know it's a smart object when it has that little thing in the corner, right? So now I can turn off all these bottom layers because this one has now combined them all. But now I can take this layer into any other plugin or do whatever else I want with it. So I could take this one to Luminar Neo because you can draw more car trails in using the neon and glow tool, which is really cool, right? Again, something you could do in Photoshop, but really hard, really hard. Okay, you would need a serious quality brush. So I'm not going to do a perfect job of this, but we're going to do neon and glow. Okay, you see there's a line to draw. I'm going to get a yellow color. Okay, and I'm just going to draw one line just to show you what happens. Okay, so if I draw, okay, we get this. So I'm going to adjust it so it's not quite so wide. Okay, so less spread. We want more color and maybe a little more orange for the headlights to match what's here. Okay. And then, dial it down a little bit. Okay. Now I should have, it doesn't allow you to draw with a finer pen. Okay. I wish that it did. Okay. And spread, I can't get any less than that. Okay. But you can dial down the amount, which you can see makes it narrower. Okay, so I wish that the pen would allow me to draw narrower. Okay, unfortunately it doesn't, but I can dial it down. Okay, so I'm just going to erase this one because I want to draw a better line because now I've got the settings that I want to use. Okay, so I did like a test line, right? And we can make some red ones as well. Okay, so if I want more red, I just have to go more red. So let's say I want a straight line going from here to there. Well, now you can do a straight line by just clicking once over here and then once over here. Okay, let's say I want another one next to it. Okay, so now we've got some nice red lines. Let's dial those down a little bit. And maybe a little bit more orange, a little more red. Okay, this adjusts the color. Okay, how intense is the color? And we're getting close there. See that? And now, I mean, we could just make some crazy lines, right? So remember, these are tail lights. So I could say, well, I want one that goes like this and goes over there. Okay, that one's not so great, but you get the idea. Okay, so the smoother you can draw, the better. Okay. Oops, somebody made a boo-boo. Okay. Or maybe they went the wrong way. Oh no, they're going the wrong way. Right? If we want that one to be yellow, right? If we want some yellow lines, right? If I draw another one, it's going to be red, right? So I can dial this down a little bit. Okay. So if I want yellow lines, I just need to close it, open it, change it to yellow. Right? Remember, way down here. And let's do something like that. Okay. So now I can just go crazy making lines. The one thing you do have to watch out for is if they overlap, something like a tree or each other. So if they overlap each other, you kind of get a bright spot sometimes. So just be careful of that. Okay. You got some really crazy drivers in Hanoi, so you never know what's going to happen here. See the crossover there? That's what I didn't want. Okay. So something like that. Okay. Now we've added more lines. Okay. If you like this idea, but you want to turn it down, you can always go back and adjust it. Or remember, we're adding this as a layer, right? I'm going to add some mystical here just because I like mystical on my landscape images. Okay. So now when I apply it, it's going to bring it back to Photoshop as that layer, that stamp layer that I made. Okay. This is going to be our last one for today. Kind of an epic session today. Okay. So now it's coming back. And it's in a smart object. So it shows up like a filter, okay? Because we applied a smart object. So remember I said if you want it less intense than what I did in Luminar, guess what? All we need to do is change the opacity of this layer, okay? Because all that's on this layer is a little bit of glow and those light trails. See that? So we dial it down a little bit and they look a lot more realistic. See that? Like so. And if I wanted to take it to the next level and I've got some of these, crisscrossy lines over here that don't look so good, you can do a retouching layer. Okay, so like I did earlier. Okay. On a retouching layer, you can do cloning and healing. So I'm going to use the J, this one here. Yeah, this one. Okay. So you can do cloning and healing. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to use a spot heal and just click on here. Make sure that sample all layers is selected. And then when I draw over these little bits that I want to fix, it's sampling all the layers and just putting that on this new layer. Okay. So the crossover parts where I had some boo-boos, I can fix super easily. Okay. Same over here. If I've got any, looks like a couple here. Okay. And it's doing a good job of sort of filling it in. Remember, this is content aware. Look at it, even filled in that line. Okay. So I'm just double checking, and anything else I want to get rid of too. Okay. So if there's a spot or something that you don't like, okay, looks like something up here. Maybe I don't want that red sign, right? Like so. And this one here, I made a big boo-boo. I went over the building, right? So I think I want to get rid of that one. And there's our finished image. Great. So I'm going to save it. And when I close, and I could get rid of this motorcycle light down here as well if I wanted, and this line here, maybe blend it a little better, right? Because there's kind of a weird end here. It just kind of ends. That blends a little better. That's not bad. Right? If I want to get rid of the motorcycle light, kind of don't mind it. But this layer, there's nothing on here. If I turn off all these other layers, that's all that's on here. It's just the retouching. Okay. Just like that. So save. Oh, it's already saving in the background, and close. Okay, so for those of you that are stuck around, any questions? Any questions? Maybe we should do a quick survey. What can we ask them, Rob? What would you like to know? Tell us in the chat with a yes or a no. Are you using layers now? Yes or no? And the follow-up question to that is, so you can answer two parts. If you're not currently using layers, or if it's confusing to you, is this helpful? Has this live session today helped you understand better what you can do with layers, when to use them, how to mask them, all of the elements of layers? So Linda, if you're not using layers now, has this helped you? Are you going to give it a try? And what software are you using? We also need a theme for next week, Rob is telling me. So yes, we do. I think this is now saved, and I will save it and close it, and it will come back into Lightroom. So no, you're not using layers, and yes, you're going to. So remember, give me a little bit more information in the chat. Tara says yes and yes. Marguerite, yes, I've used layers in Photoshop and Neo. Linda's using Luminar. Ken, not yet. Okay, awesome. Julia's going to try the rewatch, the replay. Nick, very helpful today. Picked up some good pointers. Awesome. I'm so glad. And that's the thing, right, Julia? You can watch this anytime. And the benefit of having it on YouTube is if I talk too fast for you, because I talk really fast sometimes, you could change the speed on the playback. So you can actually change the speed to 0.75. So then I will talk more like this, like that. Okay. If you speed me up, I sound like Mickey Mouse. Carol says no and yes. Deb says yes. Yes and yes. Reinforce what you've already learned. You are an expert. You should be an expert, Holly. You are an expert. I know you did layers because you made yourself with a zebra background. So I know you've done layers. No and yes. Okay, awesome. Continue to learn in Photoshop and Luminar. Photoshop, but not Neo. Excellent. And another question for those of you who do not currently have any of my courses, were you aware that I have courses on all of these things? I have a Luminar Neo course, a Lightroom course, and a Photoshop course. And I've been saying for a while, Images Alberta, Images Camera is Tara, Rob. I've been saying for a while that I'm going to be doing an advanced Photoshop one. So these are the kinds of things we'll be talking about in advanced Photoshop, as well as the ones that I showed you earlier, how to do things that are way more advanced, like this one here. I'm just going to open this one in Photoshop and show you guys what is involved here, because when I go to edit original, you'll see the layers again. Okay, Rob is changing my layout. Awesome. I like that so much. Leah says I took lots of notes. Awesome. Awesome, Lee. Marguerite. I learned about combining images, taking them from Lightroom to Photoshop. Awesome. And Tara's using Photoshop, Gen AI. You are an expert. There you go. The Lightroom course is on Classic, Lee. Yeah. And Holly can vouch. I think Ed is in here, so if he's still here, he could probably vouch. I think Marguerite has our class. I think Lee has our class. Deb, lots of our students are in here already. So for those of you that aren't current students, you can see that the students show up here every week because they're continually adding to their skills. Okay, so I want to just show you what I did with this one because it's really quite interesting. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to start at the bottom. Okay, so that's the original image. That's actually not the original image. You won't even believe the original image. This was taken in a garage, basically, where they store their wrestling ring and where they do practice. Okay, so this is the original out of camera. Okay, then I added the red background in Lightroom. Okay, so I used masking on the background. Okay, so this is what I brought into Photoshop. And then I started doing things like just cleaning it up. Okay, so a retouching layer, like I showed you a minute ago, just to clean up some of the signs. Okay, then I did a darkening. Oh, why is it darkening her? That's interesting. That's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be not on her. So I need to fix that because she's not supposed to be darkening. All right, so I'm going to fix that. Yeah, definitely not on her face. Okay. So I make sure that she is not being darkened. Why I had that on her face, I have no idea. All right, so I'm darkening. It looks like the parts of the background. Okay. I'm not sure why I did that, to be honest. And then I started adding some smoke. Okay. I think I had some of these layers off, is what happened. Ah, I know what's going on. I know what's going on. I masked her out on one of these, and I'm not sure where she's showing up. Should be her masked out so that I could add the smoke in the background, okay? Because the smoke should be showing up behind. So I'm not even sure what I did here, to be honest. But the smoke, I added the text, okay? And just darkened the edges here. Each of the smoke is a different layer, okay? And I'm using a brush to make smoke. So let me just show you how that works. I'm just going to turn the smoke off so you can see what I'm doing. Right. So white smoke. So let's say I want to make some smoke. I'm just going to add a new layer in between here. And I'm going to do sample smoke. Okay. And I'm going to get a brush. And then I'm going to go up here to get some custom brushes. Okay. So on the brush tab here, okay, I've got custom brushes, and these ones here are smoke, I believe. Okay. I gotta find them. Where are they? Where are my brushes? Okay, general brushes. There we go. Okay. General brushes, dry media, wet media, fog. Okay, here we go. Free smoke brushes. So what I did was I did a search for the kind of brush. I think I can find them under here. There we go. I did a search for a smoke-free Photoshop smoke brush. Okay, so these are smoke brushes. So when I select it, it comes up with a setting, a pre-setting. Okay, now I'm going to choose a color. I'm just going to choose like yellow or blue so you can really see it. Okay, so blue is what I'm going to paint with. And I could paint with 100% opacity. So when I paint, it looks like that. Okay. You just do one click and it makes smoke. So I played with a lot of different smoke brushes. See, that one looks like a flower, right? To get those kinds of effects. Let's try yellow. Okay. And the reason that I did the colors that I did, now I can make it bigger as well. Okay, so if I want this one bigger, okay. The reason I did the colors that I did is because she's an indigenous woman, and the medicine wheel are these colors. Okay. So I literally just played around with all of these different kinds of smoke brushes. I downloaded 20 from there and a bunch more from here. So I just tried them all, right? And once you apply them, now you're on a layer, right? So I have the ability to free transform it. So I can tilt it, move it, okay, and so on. Okay. And I did each one on a different layer so that I could pick and choose which kind of smoke I liked the best. So I really just played around until I got something that I liked, right? I did one that was black, okay, so I might pick a different one, and I did something up here. But I downloaded like a bazillion free smoke brushes, right? You know, this one's got tall, right? So she's got smoke coming out the back kind of thing. Okay. You can change the opacity, and that's why I did them each on a separate layer, because then I had the ability to resize them separately, change the color, change the opacity, and so on, tilt them. So I'm not going to save this one because I like what I had done before. I'm not going to mess with it. Okay, so I'm going to close without saving and then come back to Lightroom. Right, so that was my finished image. You could see the yellow smoke is the same one that I used. I did a black smoke, several different white smokes. I think there's even a red one in there. But I could go in and adjust the opacity of any of those at this point if she didn't like it, right? And then added the text. So that was again, something that you cannot do with Luminar because it doesn't have the ability to change the brushes, right? Custom brushes is something that is in Photoshop. Okay. Does my Lightroom course address collections? Yes, I talk about all kinds of things in the library module. There's several lessons. You can actually watch 2 lessons for free. If you could please share the link to the free lessons, Rob. You can check out 2 lessons for free, and I talk about the library module. I talk about using the sorting and filtering. I talk about keywords. I talk about flagging and numbering and all those kinds of things. Yes, as well as collections. You can see that I have a lot of collections. Next question. Do you think Luminar will ever have more brushes, or is it not necessary to the program? I highly doubt it at this point. There's still things, that we're waiting for, like post-crop vignette. The vignette tool still adds based on the original image, so we're still waiting for that. I'm still waiting for copy the mask from one layer to another. So there are things that are higher priority than a custom brush at this point, I believe. Yeah. Any other questions? There's a link for you, Carol, to the preview lessons for Lightroom, and there are 3 preview lessons, so you can check that out. And if you're watching the replay of this, I also believe that there's a link in. Can you get your email, Rob? The one that's got the link. We'll put a link in the description below. If you need to purchase Luminar Neo, it is actually, you can get it with our link at 30% off until the 14th. So you can buy yourself a Valentine's Day special, or if you need to upgrade, like if you have an older lifetime license and you want all of these new tools, you do need to upgrade to get that. I'm not sure if the Creative Journey Pass is available anymore. I think they've done away with that. But you can get the Pro membership, which is a 2-year license, and then you get everything and you're up to date for 2 years, right? And it is a subscription, but it's really inexpensive for 2 years. So I highly recommend it. Can you have a link to the Luminar class as well, please, Rob? Julia is asking. There's a link above to this one here, Julia. Will take you to all of our online courses so you can see all of them, including Luminar, Photoshop, and Lightroom. So that one will work for you, and you can get to the Lightroom one. And there's lots of reviews of the courses as well, so you can check out what other people have said. Don't take our word for it. Does anybody need Luminar Neo to purchase it? Because let me find the link for you. I'm just going to open my email. It's a limited time only for partners to present with 30% off. So let me just find that. Oh, look, I have an Images Alberta email in my inbox, Tara. Here is a link, and I'm sure Rob's going to want to put some special juice on this one, but for now in the chat, there's a link to get you 30% off Luminar Neo if you get it before December 14th. I think there's also some other packages. We're going to wrap up. We haven't picked a topic for next week. Any suggestions? We had some suggestions last time. Sunsets. We're going to do sunsets. That was it. So, oops. What happened? We're going to do sunsets next week. So, please submit your sunset images. Let me come back over here. I've got feature image somewhere. Where are we? I got lots on the go here. This is collections, folders. I do have. I'm looking for my featured images. Featured images. Featured images. I do not have my featured image. I have it in Luminar. I'm just trying to get a link for them to submit their images, Rob. If you could please post that in the chat. So sunset images for next week. So for those of you that are new, most of the images that I did today were my images with a few exceptions like Lee's. However, next week I'm back to editing subscriber submitted images. So use the link that Rob is putting in the chat or in the description area below. If you're watching this as a replay, there's the link to submit. Please use that link. You can submit up to 2 images, and we're going to be working on sunsets. Send your raw files, please. Those are the best ones for me to work on. And if you have more than 2 images that you want to send me so that I have an option, just submit the form twice. But let me know, what you'd like me to do with your image, or if you just want to see what I come up with, that's fine too. So sunsets for next week, and submit your images, and we'll see you then. So I'm going to actually sign out with our bumper, Rob, and we'll see everybody next week for some wonderful sunsets. Take care. And thanks for joining and giving us a thumbs up. Always helps. Take care.